ranch. So happy to see y'all. We got some people watching already, which I'm always happy to see. Now, after about a week of record-breaking heat, today I actually have to pull out my hoodie, and I was like freezing, like it was 74 degrees. I'm like, this is crazy. But the sun is always shining on the ranch, and we know here at the ranch, we are on a quest to span the globe and find the best in Americana and country music, and we are in for a treat tonight. We are brought to you by Blast Music 24/7, which is a great support for all indie artists. If you haven't found it, you really should. Now, we are interactive tonight, so all your comments we can see and respond to, so let us know where you're watching from. We want to hear from you. And I got a guest for you tonight. I found him on a kind of an international website. Well, it's not even a website. It's a radio station called Amazing Radio. And it broadcasts all around the globe. And there's a couple artists that we were sandwiched together and getting some good radio play, which I was really thrilled about. And I'm like, I kind of like this. It's really kind of a cool Americana folky vibe. I'm always up for a good protest, back to my college poli-sci days. So I'm going to bring Joshua onto the stage. Joshua, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you visiting from tonight?
I am actually in South Florida, and while you're in there with hoodies, we're trying to stay cool.
We were like that. We were hitting 100 degrees. We had this heat wave going. And then we had these huge thunderstorms last night. The sky opened up. And today it's been really cool, but I think we're going right back up to heat.
Oh, it's been nice and hot here for a while. 9 months, 10 months out of the year. It's hell is cooler.
Yeah, I don't think I could do Florida. California I would do in a heartbeat, but Florida, I see the size of some of your bugs down there.
We've got some big ones. The palmettos are no joke.
Yeah, they're like nasty. They're as big as the alligators, some of them. Like, I don't know.
I'm not originally from Florida, so I'm right there with you. Send me to the Northeast, and I would be happy as a pig in shit.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from New England, from Boston. My wife is from New York, and our lead singer is most of his family's in Western Pennsylvania now, but he's from Nashville area, and I love everything about the mountains, the woods, the seasons. I'm here in Florida because my wife doesn't want to leave.
Oh, okay. I mean, you don't miss winter. I mean, who went miss winter?
You know what? Let me turn that question around. If it was over 100 degrees every single day for 9 months out of the year, you'd miss winter just a little bit.
I don't know. Do I have a pool?
I don't.
You know what? If I had a surfboard, I probably would do it and not look back.
We're on the Atlantic coast, and we get some decent waves sometimes, especially ahead of the big hurricanes. So there can be good surfing here.
It can be. Actually, if you go up towards Cocoa Beach, it's actually world famous for surfing. Even though they have the wonkiest waves, they're as bad as New Jersey. It's home of Christian Slater. You know,
I've never actually been to Cocoa Beach, but I have. We live 10 minutes from Fort Lauderdale Beach, Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach. And again, the waves get pretty gnarly here for about a week ahead of a hurricane.
Yeah. Well, Christian Slater is the most famous surfer in the world. And he comes from Cocoa Beach. So
there was a world famous surfer who opened a surfing school right here in Deerfield. I think he recently passed away, but his kids still run in the school and they teach. So they're pillars of the community.
Cool. Well, but we're here to talk about music. I could talk surfing and beaches all day, but we're here to talk about your music. And we're here for an emotional ride, which is so cool. I mean, your stuff hits, and it's meant to do that, right?
It is. It is. And we have more coming that's finished, but we had to slow down how fast we were putting it out. And I think that each one of our songs hits a little harder than the last.
Now, is there certain topics that you're centering around, or a little of this, a little of that?
That's a great question. There's a couple of topics that we chose to center around. And then the rest of our music just kind of comes out of we'll be having a conversation and it'll just be like, we need to write a song about that. Mm-hmm. The ones that I think you have planned for us to talk about today, each one of those had a purpose before we started writing them. And we definitely wanted to talk about those specific topics. The things that we try to talk about when we're focusing on something before a song just manifests is the things that the world has forgotten how to talk about or is too afraid to talk about because they might offend somebody one way or the other. And so we want our songs to speak and say the things that society is no longer saying, but we want to do it in a way where it resonates rather than upsets people.
Can you give me an example of a topic that you don't think people want to talk about anymore?
I can give a topic that it's not an anymore. It's just people have never really been good about talking about it. We have a upcoming song called Men Like Him. Would fit right on your station too. But the song is about domestic violence for all of the men out there that have always stayed silent because nobody would believe them or because they were embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I actually have a song about domestic violence too. It's actually a murder ballad called Olivia. And it's for the same exact purpose. I want people singing along and then going, oh, you know, this is about domestic violence. This is about stalking, you know.
So Men Like Him is one of those. We have another one that's coming called The List. And I apologize. I'm probably going to tear up talking about this one. It's very, very personal. So we wrote a song called The List to speak out against suicide. Mm-hmm. So for many, many, many years, I struggled with suicide. I struggled with depression. And last year, I had 3 genuine suicide attempts. About 3.5 years ago, I got to the point where I put my name on a doctor-assisted suicide list in Europe. And music actually saved my life. I wrote my first song at the tail end of last year. And a friend had me jump up on stage as a fill-in bass player. He needed somebody. And I put my company up for sale the very next day. I found something that brought joy into a life that had been absent of joy for over 2 decades. And it took some time, but late February, I took my name off of the list that I had been on for over 3 years. And they gave me space, but about 4 weeks ago, I finally sat down and I wrote a song about it. And I'm hoping that it'll reach somebody else that was in the same place, couldn't talk to somebody, didn't know how to talk, didn't know where to turn, or just thought nobody cared. And if we can touch one person, right, that's what it's all about. So that's very hard thing to talk about. Suicide is a very hard thing to talk about. It's a very hard thing for people to engage about.
Right, there's a taboo about talking about it. We talk about it, we're going to give people ideas, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. You know, we talk about it more, and you'd be surprised how many people have felt that way. You know, that really can relate. I'm having my own Me Too moment here too, and I actually wrote a song about a suicide because I was on an intervention team at one point. And if there was a teen suicide in Bergen County where I was working, I was on a flight team that would go into a school and help the school grieve. And it was the hardest thing to work with kids when they lost one of their own, you know, and I will never sing that song ever. I cannot do it on stage. So
the recording some of our songs takes longer than it probably should have, because I write most of our songs. My singer, he's my best friend. He brings them to life. He does that by getting inside of my head, my heart, the song. He experiences whatever it was that I was experiencing when I wrote the song. And he sings from that place of raw emotion. And a handful of our songs, Miss You Dad, Wishing, some of the, which are, I think you're gonna talk about or play, and then some of the ones that are coming, he has to stop line by line to dry his tears, get his composure back together before he can move on. And, you know, singers can usually go in and just bang out, you know, you do a bunch of takes, but you can plow through. You can plow through. No, it's line by line, sit down, get it out of your system, and get back up there once you're in control of your voice and your breathing again.
Well, the copy guy, Paul, says, my heart goes out to you, Joshua. I'm glad you found your purpose that brings you joy and that you're using the talent to reach others. And that is so admirable.
Thank you.
And to me, that is the purpose of music. You know, it's gotten me through so many moments, you know, and to be able to give back, you know, with messages, it's just so rewarding. And I'm glad that you have found that. And again, it's hard to get up there and sing about it and kind of get your message across. And you guys are doing that in spades. So let's talk about that first song, Groundhog Day, about reliving things over and over.
So Groundhog Day might have the most unique story out of all of the ones that we've ever written, because prior to Groundhog Day, it was not our first song that we released, but it was the first song where Eddie and I collaborated completely as equal creators, and this threw ideas back and forth. And I was at work, and I would get a WAV file on my phone, and I'd listen to it, and I would say, I love what you did, but I didn't like that. And we would tweak it and change it. And then we would get together and just experiment. And he was fiddling around, not knowing that I was recording him, because I had him running through my studio, not just coming out of the amp. And I started, it just kind of evolved totally organically. We lost ourselves in it. And it was our first real collaboration. Started writing that one because I had just gotten on stage and performed with him, and it was just a cover gig, as a matter of fact. I learned 60 covers just to fill in for him. I'm a plumbing contractor, master plumber. I was doing that all day, every day. And so I was just kind of tired of the same thing day after day. My marriage, our relationship wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was just kind of the same constant tension and petty turmoil every day. Work was the same thing. Plumbing was plumbing day after day. Contractors have problems. People, I felt like every day I was not moving forward in life. I wasn't moving forward as a parent, as a husband. Everything, it seemed like it was just kind of stuck. And I know that there are other people who feel stagnant. So I know that our song definitely resonates with people. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. The song wasn't really about fighting or negativity. It was just about being stuck. And it's not getting worse. It's not getting better. And I'm not happy with where I am. We didn't intend to have a very No Rain by Blind Melon kind of vibe. It just kind of evolved and it came out that way on its own.
Well, why don't we give this a listen to?
Sounds good.
I knew how to change. I need a day without a fight. It's only joy you rage. I wanna know a peaceful night. I gotta say that every day going round and round and up and down. It's Groundhog Day, every day's the same. Oh, it's Groundhog Day. I just want someone to say, you'll be safe, I'll always stay. I'm on this ride for good. I don't wanna know any other way. Yeah, I gotta say that every day still feels the same. Always hoping for something new. Here we go again. I'm on a roller coaster called life, going round and round and up and down. It's Groundhog Day, every day's the same. Every day, it's Groundhog Day. Ooh, hey. Every day's the same. Every day, it's Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day.
And that was Groundhog Day. We are here on the ranch. We are sponsored by Blast Music 24/7, which is a great indie resource. You could have a site, your own site, upload music. There's a lot of chances to kind of interact, network. There's podcasts. There's a lot of information for indie artists. So, and this is one of their productions. So we're here with Joshua. And I have to ask you, Joshua, this feeling of being stuck that you were, how much of that was coming out of the military?
Well, I actually got out of the military in 2008. So probably not a whole lot of it coming out of the military, given that there was over a decade between the military and the writing of this song. I definitely think it was having reached a plateau professionally, and having that plateau impacting my ability to grow in my marriage and as a parent, because I was pulling 80 to 90 hours a week with a company that just was, I had done phenomenal things with it, but I was just kind of stuck. It was the same thing. I had hit my cap, and I was just kind of stuck. So I think that it was just kind of an accumulation of all of these different things that were independently stuck, going nowhere or just not changing. And I wanted change. I wanted to get back to the honeymoon period with my wife. And I wrote it at the time when my daughter was just past 3.5 years old. And so she had not quite gotten into this awesome phase where she is now. She turns 4 in about a week and a half. And the last 3 months, she's just blossomed into this deeply philosophical and hilarious person that I can have conversations with. But 9 months ago when I wrote this song, it was not quite there yet. But she had gotten the terrible 2s, the 3s, all of it kind of hit at one spot. So I was not enjoying being a parent. I wasn't hating it, but I was doing all of the parent stuff without all of the fun parts. And I was missing all of the fun parts because I was working all the time and not really getting anywhere. And it was just everything kind of all at once. Mm-hmm. What's really interesting is that the photo, the art that was used for that song, is actually a wedding photo.
I saw the wedding photo, and then you have this cool groundhog coming up over it.
So that is actually that's actually my wife and I, her bridesmaids and my groomsmen, and I actually took one of our wedding photos and used AI to get the groundhog in the picture, and then to kind of break the photo just a little bit, so you couldn't really tell who it was, but could be anybody, could be you, could be me, could have been your best friend. But I actually have used wedding photos for a few of our songs, and not always the good ones.
And you know what? For the song and for what it means, that's a great visual, because you see yourself, you're supposed to be starting off in this great journey, but yet you feel stuck, with the groundhog. So it's a really awesome visual.
So have you been married?
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay. Did you have a wedding that was beautiful and wonderful?
I did. Maybe more than one.
We're not going to talk about how many times I've been married.
Josh, we don't have time for that. Okay, keep going.
So that beautiful wedding, right? That beautiful wedding. For starters, anybody who's had a big wedding, that day goes on and on and on and on. And it never, ever ends, right? Or at least it feels that way. But that's also one of the select few days in your life that if you could relive it over and over again, you probably would, because it was a day filled with joy and your friends and your family getting together to celebrate something. And so that's one of those. It's both. I don't want to do this all day, every day, and man, I would relive that moment over and over again. So I felt like that was.
It does set such high expectations for the relationship, because a lot of people don't think about the day after. They put so much, we're going to get married and it's going to be this great day and flowers and, it goes on and on and on and on. But then the day after, you're like, now what?
The day after, there was not enough coffee in the world for the day after. But actually, the day after was great too. We were exhausted. It was a ton of work to put our house and our life back together. But we were just, my wife and I actually got married. We got married right in the beginning of COVID. So 2020. And we didn't get to have a wedding because of COVID. And then we planned a wedding and it didn't get to happen because of COVID, because my wife wanted to get married at the Mohonk Mountain House in New York, in the Catskill Mountains, but New York was the tightest of everybody. And so this happened a few times, same thing over and over again. By the time we got married, we had been married for almost 4 years, but weren't really telling people we were married. It was on paper, but so the day after for us was kind of this epiphany moment. Like, I'm your husband. Like, I'm really your husband. You're really my wife. We really did it. So the day after was actually pretty spectacular. And then it took about 2 weeks before we finally settled back into a normal routine.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah, ground zero, because I was still living in northern New Jersey. So I was at ground zero working in a school. It was not fun. It was quite an overwhelming place to be at the time. And, kids didn't get to graduate. Kids didn't get to prom. They didn't.
My wife actually happens to be a chemistry and biology teacher. And so I experienced that firsthand from a teacher, what they were going through. We were also pregnant during COVID. My daughter was born in July of 2020. So it worked out in our favor because my wife got to teach from home through most of her pregnancy and the first 6 months after our daughter was born. Yeah, it worked out really nice for us, but it was very jarring. And I got to see it firsthand or experience it firsthand through her. So yeah, it was really hard on the kids. Kids didn't get to graduate. And you know what? Now that we're talking about this, I feel like our band is probably going to want to write a song about it for all of those kids. So thank you, because now I'm inspired to write a song about this.
I will collaborate with you on that. I will do that.
Definitely.
Definitely. Let's do that.
It'd be awesome.
I have some ideas. All right. But let's get on to the next song we have lined up, which I don't know if this was how recent this was, but it's Miss You, Dad.
I wrote Miss You, Dad in February of this year. So our wedding that we finally got to have was February 2nd. And my dad lives 10 minutes away from the wedding venue. So about 10 minutes away from us too. And I hadn't seen or spoken to my dad in about a year at the time of the wedding. He had gotten the invites. You know, it was really important to me that my dad was there. I don't really have any connection to any of my family. I cut toxicity and toxic family members out a long time ago. Most of my songs that I've written come from childhood trauma or things that connect to childhood trauma. So my dad and I have always been very, very close. And we had a falling out. We had a falling out about a year and a half ago. He's a little bit older, a little bit quicker to make harsh judgment calls than he used to be. And when he RSVP'd not coming to our wedding, it was the first time in a year he had had any contact with my wife and I, and it really hurt. So I wrote this song for him, actually.
You were the bigger person here. You were the bigger person here.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah, there's some lines in there. You're probably right.
There's one line, and it wasn't my idea to have it hyper accentuated, but the music and everything drops out and stops for one line. And that one line was a little bit of that hurt coming out, kind of like, I wrote this song for you, but here's just a little punch because I'm hurting. So when we wrote that song, I had written some, it was not originally as nice as it was. And my band is phenomenally empathetic and kind and compassionate. I'm definitely the businessman. I can sometimes turn it on and off and make really hard decisions without the empathy, but they are just nothing but heart. And so they softened my writing, they tweaked it. It ended up being much more powerful for it. The day we released it, as soon as it went live, I don't know, like 3 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock in the morning, I was getting messages on Facebook. Thanks for the morning cry session. I lost my dad 2 weeks ago. And we realized that we had done a really good job, except for that one line, of speaking to everybody, anybody who has lost a parent, estranged from a parent, grew up without a parent. For whatever reason, they're distant or missing their parent. So it wasn't just, oh, my dad turned his back on me, so the song is just for people who their dad turned their back on. Anybody who grew up with a dad, now he's gone, didn't grow up with a dad, wish you did. It turned out that the song ended up being for everybody.
All right, why don't we give this a listen to?
be you. I tell my daughter every single day I love you and I'll always stay. I'll never turn my back on you. I miss you, Dad. Why did you have to go? I need you now more than you could ever know. I miss you, Dad. Do you remember me? I'm not the one you wanted me to be. I miss you, Dad. I miss you, Dad. The day I tied the knot, I really needed you there. It wasn't asking for a lot, but you still weren't there. I hear your voice inside my head every time I think those words you said, but you're still nowhere. I miss you, Dad. Why did you have to go? I need you now more than you could ever know. I miss you, Dad. Do you remember me? I'm not the one you wanted me to be. I miss you, Dad. Where did you go? I miss you bad more than you could know. I miss you, Dad. Do you remember me? I guess I'm not the one you wanted me to be. I miss you so bad. I miss you, Dad.
Wow, we are back on the ranch, and the ranch is brought to you by Blast Music 24/7. We are here for all things indie artists, and tonight's session could be almost like a music is therapy session as we talk to Joshua. And he has some really powerful lines in there. Again, to all the people watching, we have some people coming and going. This is interactive, so if you have some comments for me or Joshua, please let us know where you're. Oh, we got one. See what's happening here. Your band sound is nicely textured, like Crowded House. Oh, okay, I can see that. I can see that. Toad the Wet Sprocket, definitely some undertones. And Dawes Over the Country, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, some high praise there. So it is kind of a cool groove that you have going, and while you kind of throw out these lines, I'm not the man that you wanted me to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, very heartfelt lyrics.
my dad is a biomedical engineer. My mom is a registered nurse. My sisters are registered nurses. My stepsisters are registered nurses. My stepmother is a nurse practitioner. Everybody in my family wanted and expected me to do something that was math, science, healthcare, engineering based. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. Even though I was the black sheep because I went into the military, that was still very rigid and structured. And I don't think anybody in my family ever wanted me to be an artist of any kind. They certainly wouldn't have expected it. My mom would play at getting me crayons and things to color and then complement my art and then find a way to redirect my focus towards books or academics or something else. And they eventually killed or suppressed everything emotional and artistic. And I turned into a person through most of my teens and 20s that I wouldn't want to be friends with me. There was There was nothing there but some anger and some narcissism. I mean, and a lot of arrogance. So that came about from having the very core of who I am, which is a empath who wants to create and share, just suppressed. And so that was what that was about. Because I threw everything away to do music.
I'm sure that went over big with your family.
I have no idea how it went over with them.
Oh, good for you.
I did everything that they expected me to do. Did the military, did college, got my degree, started a business, sold the business, started another one. I've been very successful in all of those things. By the time I decided to throw it all away and take my chance on music, I had already kind of cut ties with everybody other than my dad. And my dad and I, at that point, we hadn't spoken in about 5 or 6 months already, too. Not my choice, but I'm hoping my family knows that I'm kind of doing just as much impressive and successful things as an artist, but I have the capacity to touch a whole lot more people and make the world a better place. Yeah, I mean, I could build high rises all day long, but that doesn't really do anything for anybody other than the people I employ and my own pockets. I want the world to be a better place for my daughter to grow up in.
You know what? Isn't it a shame that when we say we're working on ourselves, we're building our creativity and building ourselves and working on ourselves, that we consider we're throwing things away, when we're really just building ourselves and finding our own moral path?
Well, I would love for my family to look at me and say, or at least be able to recognize, yeah, he gave a $200,000+ a year salary up, but he also gave up fighting with his wife, being absent and missing all of his daughter's milestones. He what he got by giving that up was welcomed into multiple families and social circles and like ride or die friends that are really emotionally solid and mature. Eddie saved my life. If I wasn't involved in music, that wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be sitting here.
You know what? I worked in very affluent areas. And one time I had to go into this one person's house. I think I was doing tutoring or something. I don't know. And it was a huge house. And I walked inside and it was empty. And to me, that really became like a metaphor for what I see in a lot of people. They keep up this facade of having a beautiful house, a beautiful outside, but inside they're just so empty and they can't fill their house.
That was me. I have a big, beautiful house. Maybe not big by most of the country's standards, but fairly large by South Florida standards. I had 2 Teslas. I have the nice stuff. Now I'm house broke because I gave up the money necessary to afford it. And I've gotten rid of the Teslas. I drive a little pickup truck now, just a Chevy Colorado, really downsized. I realized that having all that stuff was really nice, but I couldn't enjoy it because I had to give 80 to 90 hours a week of my life just to be able to feed that monster, if you will, to pay for it. And what's the point of having nice things if you have to work so much that you can't enjoy them and you can't share them with anybody else? And so we're no longer financially comfortable. We're barely financially making it to break even. But our relationship is as good as it ever was when we were first dating. And I get to see my daughter. I take her to school every morning. I pick her up a couple of times a week and take her to jiu-jitsu. I get daddy-daughter dates twice a week. I get to spend at least 2 nights a week with her because I pull her up on stage and she gets to dance with me. And nobody bats an eye if there's a bad sounding chord because there's an adorable 4-year-old that wanted to strum the guitar while she's up on stage dancing. Being able to take that big, beautiful, empty house, and instead of having a big, beautiful, empty house, having something small but full of life and family. It was totally worth it. My wife, I'm still struggling to wrap my head around money, status, and as defining your success. But my wife is vegan because she wants to make the world a better place, and she's all about rescuing animals. She teaches at low-income schools because she wants to teach the kids that need her the most, not the kids who already have a silver spoon and a future. And so she's been working really hard with me. And the rest of my band is already there. That there are things in life that are far more important in defining of success than money and stuff. Family and happiness being the definition of success for the rest of the band. So I'm very fortunate that it has started to rub off on me. I'm hoping that it rubs the rest of the way.
I'm sure it will. So tell us about the band. Yeah, it's Shiv.
Yeah. Okay. So if you noticed when you put up the art for Groundhog Day, it actually has the word Jew, but with 2 E's at the top. That song was released before we had decided on a name for the band, and that was my first 2 initials and then Eddie's initials, Joshua Elyashiv, Eddie Willer. We got some feedback from different record labels that maybe it's too political, even though it wasn't intended to be. And we finally settled on a name. We want our lyrics to stick it to the powers that be, just like a shiv in prison, right? You use a shiv, you stab somebody, you poke a bunch of holes in them, everything that's inside spills out, and your problem is hypothetically solved. So we want to stick it to the establishment. Maybe not the same way of the Ramones back in the day, but we look around the world and it is definitely worse off now as far as the bottom versus the top than it was in the 80s and 90s. And we want the most people to have the most things. So we chose that name. We also chose that name because it's the last 4 letters of my name, and my band knew that I was a little bit full of myself. So it was like the biggest compliment they could give me when they came and said, "Hey, Josh, we want to name the band Shiv." And I was like, "Are you guys sure? All right, I'm in." Because I was coming up with crazy names. Like, we had watched a TV show and they had an interesting name for a fake band, and I was like, "Man, I could actually roll with that. Time traveling Pirates of the Confederacy." That's way too many words. So we had tried a bunch of stuff, but they were just like, "Josh's head is really big. It barely fits through doors. It's got a really awesome connotation of sticking it to somebody and poking holes in things. But at the end of the day, Josh isn't going to argue with us because it's his name." So I would love to say that there's something really, really big and meaningful other than to stick it to the man. But it was my band knowing that I am probably the most stubborn person on earth, and they needed to play to my ego for that one.
Well, it's a big person. You can admit that publicly. So credit.
We have a song called Narcissist that I like to joke I wrote about my wife. But the more I've listened to it, the more I realize I might have been writing about myself.
I see the growth, Joshua. I see the growth here. I'm really pleased by that.
Well, I actually locked her out of the house just because it had 3 weeks with no songs because everything was really happy and going really well. So I picked a fight with her, didn't tell her I was going to pick a fight with her, locked her out of the house, and I wrote Narcissist as she was standing outside the front door. And she was so mad when we started playing it live, and we would be like, "Hey, Josh wrote this for his wife." And I really think I wrote it for myself, which is, perfect because I'm a narcissist. So.
Okay, so we have one last song, and hello, Carol. Glad you're watching. It's called Wishing.
Okay, so this is of our first full album that we wrote. Our first album is called What I Know. There are 11 songs on the album, plus an official cover of Hunger Strike by Temple of the Dog. So some of our greatest influences are Chris Cornell and Led Zeppelin, but Chris Cornell for like emotional, heartfelt lyrics that are meaningful. And Wishing might very well be the most powerful and emotional song on the whole album. In October, the world really changed. There was some attacks in the Middle East, and the world became maybe more divided than it has been in decades, right? The elections with Trump and Biden were very divisive, but this is even more so. And I lost 2 family members. 2 of my cousins' husbands were working on a kibbutz. The kibbutz did weddings. It was a wedding venue, just like any here. And so they were working a wedding, a celebration of life, of joy, of happiness. There was no police, there was no military anywhere nearby. And they were killed in the first wave of attacks. The song is not intended to choose a side, right? We were not saying in the song pro-Israel, pro-Ukraine, pro-Russia. We did not take a side. We were listening to Imagine by John Lennon and talking to some of my family that was hiding in stairwells in their apartment building because there was no bomb shelter in their town because it was so far from where the fighting had always been. And we said, you know what? John Lennon had the right idea. Imagine is a really powerful song, just calling everybody to love each other and do better. The world needs to hear that again. So we wrote Wishing because I'm a dad. And my cousins now have kids growing up without fathers. And regardless of which side of the equation you're on, right? Whether you support Palestine or you support Israel, whether you support Russia or Ukraine, it doesn't matter which side you support because nobody wins in war. Everybody suffers. But most importantly, the children suffer, right? No parent should ever have to bury their child. No child should ever grow up without their parent. And so we wrote the song begging the world as a whole to stop killing each other.
All right, we gotta listen. This is Wishing.
Wishing on a star for the end of war. It's the same old thing as it was before. They set the world on fire, blame it on the poor. Wishing on a star for the end of war. Sides, family and friends divided by their pride. The sound of children's laughter silenced by their pain. All the things that matter will never be the same. Wishing on a star for the end of war. It's the same old thing as it was before. Set the world on fire, blame it all on the poor. Send them off to die, and they still want more. I'm wishing on a star for the end of war. For the end of war. is left in yesterday. Children forced to grow orphaned and alone. They don't know why they can't go home. Wishing on a star for the end of war. It's the same old thing as it was before. Set the world on fire, blame it all on the poor. Send them off to die, and they still want more. I'm wishing on a star for the end of war. For the end of war. For the end of war. I'm wishing. Wishing on a star for the end of war. It's the same old thing as it was before. Set the world on fire and blame the poor. But we can't take it anymore. I'm wishing on a star for the end of war. 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 I'm wishing, wishing, wishing.
Really love the acoustic guitar in there. Really love that. Really, I love to see a full video. What did you do with a full video?
We actually did about 2 weeks ago. We released an official music video for Wishing. In the last 7 days, we've had, I want to say 40 or 50,000 views, which is so awesome. Disclaimer for anybody who chooses to watch it. We do pull war footage from Russia, from Ukraine, from Israel, Palestine, and not just from our local news networks that kind of censor stuff. So there's nothing so hurt. You're not going to see dead bodies and blood and gore, but we definitely didn't choose the most PG rated footage either. You do see buildings come down and you see stuff get blown up. So just a fair disclaimer. It's going to make you feel something. And we actually have a disclaimer at the beginning of the video that some of the imagery might be upsetting. But we did do a video with it. It's really, really awesome. I actually find it very interesting that you chose the 3 songs, 3 out of 4 songs that I wrote the guitar parts for, because I'm actually the bass player for Shiv. Yeah, I'm the bass player because all of the other musicians that I play with are decades better than I am. I picked up a bass for the first time on December 1st of 2023. Yeah. I've been playing guitar kind of off and on for about 15 years. And my bandmates are just world-class professional musicians. Each one of them have 20 to 40 years of full-time professional experience. Berkeley grad for drummer, Patty LaBelle's bass player's daughter. guitar player, Aldo, who does the lead guitars on most of our first album. He's like rated by Rolling Stone magazine. He's in the top 100 guitar players in the world. Eddie, who sings, maybe the most talented musician I've ever met. He plays every instrument and he plays it like he was born playing it. So I just find it very interesting. I'm very neurodivergent, and those 3 songs that you just did are the 3 songs that I play guitar on live, because Eddie can't sing and play the guitar rhythms because the vocal melodies are so dramatically different. Miss You Dad, the guitar is actually played in halftime, but the drums and vocals are not. And so Eddie can't play the guitar and sing on that at the same time. So I just find it really interesting that my particular sound when I write the guitar parts fits so strongly into the folk and Americana category, and all of the ones where I write the bass lines and they write the guitars are much more firmly into the rock, grunge, and punk category.
I actually tried to teach myself bass during COVID. Like, I was just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, I'm like, all right, I have a lot of time. Every week I would try something new, and I was trying to. I'm not good. I can dabble, and it hones your theory up a lot, but not great.
I have a confession to make. I play bass with a pick.
I do too. I was we don't have much time. So tell us where we can find you in 30 seconds.
If you go online to www.shivband.com, you will find all of our albums, our schedule, all the information about the band, all of our social medias. They're all connected there. And it's the only place that you can go to see and hear our demos and upcoming music before they're released.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Josh, thank you so much for joining me on the Rants tonight. We've had quite a few people channeling in and out, and I want to appreciate we've been going across 7 channels. You could also find us on Roku. We are now on TV streaming, which makes me really happy. So for everyone that's watching, thank you. We are here every Monday, and we will see you on the ranch.
Thank you so much.